Sustainability in Mexico City. First, we're going to talk about the climate. The climate has a subhumid temperate with an average temperature of 16 Celsius. Water resources. After centuries of draining the Valley of Mexico, today not only the problem of floods continue, but that of water scarcity is accentuated. Authorities have made numerous efforts to meet the need related to hydraulic services in the extraction of water from even deeper wells or in its transportation from other basins. Among the actions that different governments have implemented in Mexico City are the creation, conservation, expansion, and modernization of infrastructure that imports water from other states, such as the Lerma system and the Coatzamala system, whose supply sources come from the state of Mexico for the first system and the state of Mexico and Michoacán for the second. The importation of water from other basins to satisfy the demand presents setbacks. About 40% of it is lost in leaks, is extracted clandestinely, or is unaccounted for water. Solid waste management. The daily generation of waste per inhabitant in the city is between 0.86 and 2.44 kilograms. The delegation of Cuauhtémoc reported the highest generation per inhabitant, while Milpa Alta and Álvaro Obregón registered the lowest generation per inhabitant per day. Although Iztapalapa and Gustavo Amadero reported the highest amount of waste, their per capita generation is better compared to Miguel Hidalgo and Venustiano Carranza, which contribute 6% and 7% of the total waste generated in the city. Sources of air pollution. In Mexico, electricity generation is carried out mainly from the combustion of fossil fuels, which contributes to the emission of pollutants such as SO, NO, CO, PM10, PM2.5, and volatile organic compounds that affect air quality. Transportation industry and power generation produce substances that significantly deteriorate atmosphere and can have negative impacts on the health and inhabitants, particularly Mexico City recorded air pollution at the end of March this year with concentrations of up to 625 particles less than 10 micrometers, almost 6 times the level of an environmental contingency. On the official scale, 100 in PM10 is the highest limit established as acceptable. The main responsible for this deterioration are the gases produced by the burning of fossil fuels for transport. Mexico City ranks 5th out of 28 cities to register 11,000 deaths and related to air pollution in the first half of 2020. The INEGI has reported 4.7 million registered cars. Greenpeace says first source of GHG emissions in the city and its compositions of fossil fuels is responsible for 95% of CO2 emissions according to the 2016 emission inventory. The population of Mexico City is 9,003,827 inhabitants, and the education is a little more than the second year of high school. GDP, main economic activities, unemployment rate. The GDP at the end of 2019 was 3.13 trillion Mexican pesos, 0.44% increase compared to the 2018. The economic relevance of the city is such that it is above the GDP of several countries in the region. By itself, Mexico City would be the 7th regional economy. Unemployment rate rises to 4.5% in January. The red traffic light in Mexico City and Edomex had a marginal impact in the labor market nationwide in the first month of the year, the INEGI reported. Informal employment in January 2021 amounted to 28.9 million and placed the rate at 55.6%, a figure lower by 0.6 percentage points compared to January 2020. Main economic activities like commerce, financial and insurance services, transport, and the tourism. They contribute just over 90% of the total GDP of the city. 10% of the total economy units of the country operate in the capital of the country with a territorial extension of no more than 1% of the surface of the national territory source. Contamination. 80% of Mexicans live in urban areas, with cases as dramatic as Mexico City, one of the most populated in the world. Mexican cities are the largest contributors to accelerating climate change. The amount of polluting emissions they generate from the burning of fossil fuels and the generation of wastewater and solid waste mainly. For 2015, CO2 per capita was of 3.74 metric tons per inhabitant, 18.34% higher than it had been in 1993. In 2016, transportation is the sector with the highest consumption of fossil fuels, with more than 60% of the city's energy. It is related to the highest emission of particles, nitrogen oxides, and carbon dioxide. 95% of the equivalent carbon dioxide emissions are due to the Consumption of fossil fuels. It is essential to prioritize actions aimed at the decarbonization of transport to modify the energy matrix of Mexico City and make efficient use of energy. A report from the Ministry of Energy details that during the first 10 months of 2020, 75% of the energy available in the country was produced in power plants burning fossil fuels. Now that you have this information, make sure to care and do something for your city. Mexico City is definitely a place where it's very contaminated. Please, let's take care of it together. As a future generation, we must care about this. Thank you, and together, we will take things into matter.